One day, a monk was walking alongside a stream and he saw a scorpion struggling in the water. Knowing that scorpions can't swim, he knelt down to scoop it out of water. Just before setting it down on the dry land, the scorpion turned and stung his hand. The monk withdrew his hand immediately in pain, and the scorpion fell back into the stream. Again, the monk tried to save the scorpion, and like before, the scorpion stung his hand and fell back to the stream. This scene repeated itself several times. A little boy who was playing near the stream asked the monk, "Why do you keep on trying to save the scorpion? Don't you know it will sting you every time you try to rescue it?" The monk, finally using a leaf to successfully rescue the scorpion, replied, "Dear boy, just as it's a scorpion's nature to sting, it's my nature to save. Just as it's a scorpion's nature to sting, it's my nature to save." Dear friends, we might think that Jesus is preaching something impossible for his followers to do. But if we look at the whole picture of today's gospel reading as well as in the first reading, we can summarize this message as an invitation to all Christians to walk the extra mile. He says, if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn your other cheek as well. If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. Pray for your enemies. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. It doesn't mean that we live or act stupidly by tolerating harm, abuse, or injustice. Rather, Jesus is talking about justice that needs to have a proper place in our families, workplace, and in wider society. Of course, it is easy to love those who love us, isn't it? But Jesus asks something greater of his followers. We need to be ready to love our enemies. We need to pray for those who persecute us. So, can we walk this extra mile that Jesus is inviting us to walk? Indeed, it's a difficult challenge for all of us, including me. But it's not impossible. Although we see so much revenge, hatred, and efforts to get even in our world, Jesus is presenting us a third option: to engage our enemies or aggressors in a relationship and journey of inner transformation. Pope Francis says, and I quote, "Turning the other cheek is not the loser's fallback, but the action of those who have greater inner strength. Turning the other cheek is to overcome evil with good, which opens a breach in the heart of the enemy, unmasking the absurdity of his hatred. And this attitude, this turning the other cheek, is not dictated by calculation or hatred, but by love. Saint Teresa of Calcutta often approached local businesses seeking their assistance in a work of caring for the destitute, dying, and orphans. On one occasion, a local businessman responded to her request to help by spitting at her. She replied by saying, "Thank you. That was for me. But could you spare something for the orphans?" With her reply, she actively engages aggression in the hope of changing it into something new. She loves her enemy by challenging him to inner transformation, to see himself and his actions in a mirror. The love Jesus is teaching is agape, which means a gracious, determined, and active interest in the true welfare of others by desiring the other's highest good, and never deterred by hatred, cursing, or abuse. Dear friends, let's take up Jesus' invitation to truly walk the extra mile in our love for all people. Amen.